then. Did that happen?
Oh, now it started recording. Welcome to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. My name is Richard Miller. I'm one of the hosts, and over there in Calgs, my co-host with the co-most, your friend of mine, Dr. Luke Gledall. How are you doing today, Luke?
I'm good. I'm relatively charged. This is an interesting episode, so pumped. So Rich and I are recording post-match due to kind of our timing schedules and trying to fit this in amongst the other things we want to do in life. So we're about 25 minutes past the match that we're recording this.
Hot on the heels of the Millwall game, yes.
Of the Millwall game, which we will get into. But I think because of that, I have a degree of bizarre adrenaline right now that's coursing through my veins.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can convert that adrenaline into some podcast gravy gold.
That would be lovely, wouldn't it? Yes.
It would.
To fill folks in on information that they absolutely do not need, I'm coming up and spending my my annual little trip up to Edinburgh, and tomorrow is really busy, which we normally record on a Sunday, so we've pulled it forward. But this could be interesting. It could be a different sort of dynamic for us, and I think being here in Scotland, I'm going to occasionally drop into a wee bit of brogue, just as and when I see fit. If we'd won, if we'd won and it had been a kind of Bannon pass to Fletcher, perhaps I would have been sort of overflowing with the joys of wonderful Scottishness. But I'm slightly less full of the joys of the heather at this point.
There's no bonny flowers for you, Rich.
No. I don't know what the opposite of a bonny flower is, but a terrible protruding weed is how I feel towards Scotland today.
And we are hoping to make this a quick and dirty episode of Different Gravy. So a quick and dirty Different Gravy, much like a Polish OXO cube that you've dropped on the floor.
Just wanged into a cup of tea.
There you go.
Quick and dirty.
OXO is gravy, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So we'll probably sneak in a smooth 3 hours for our Swift episode.
We'll keep it to a tight 180. Right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant.
Do we have anything from the world of ERL today?
No, we don't actually. It's been quiet. The executives at ERL have told me to just take a break this week.
Okay, nice.
So, the podcast network is doing fantastic. It promotes itself, really.
I mean, literally.
We always do this because we're like a family here at the ERL network, and we're all friends, and we like to plug each other's shows, and so.
It's a beautiful thing, and I suppose there was double duty last week, wasn't there, with a sort of top and tail of ERL content. So I suppose that leaves us moving on to breaking
hoo-hoos.
So not quite as action-packed news-wise this week, but one of your Mystic Luke efforts, Joost van Aken has gone, as predicted last week.
Yes,
he's sort of gone the opposite direction of our two other centre backs have come to us from Bundesliga 2, and he's gone to the Bundesliga 2. So.
I was wondering about this, whether we went to go pick up Bates.
Yes.
We just left Van Aken there.
Just dropped him off.
We just drove off and then left him. He had his boots and his powder puff quiff.
Yeah.
And and he's going to try and spray some balls in Bundesliga too.
He went to the toilet at the service station and didn't tell anyone, and the car left without him, and that's the end of it. That's the history.
It's like a John Hughes transfer, isn't it, Rich?
Absolutely. So, what do we think? This is probably the end of Van Aken's time with us.
I'd be surprised if he came back from this. I mean, what is contract looking like? Does he have 2 years now? So it's this season and next season, we think?
Yes, I think so. I think he did sign a 4-year deal.
Yeah, so I feel like this is hopefully a chance for him to kind of renew and revive his career abroad, and that's probably where I can kind of see him going back to.
Yeah.
So I think we'll do this, and then it'll probably just be, either a free transfer or, a loan to just see out his contract, and we'll just see out a disappointing signing from the latter, Carlos, Amadou, potentially Paxal, whatever his chop's name is,
yes.
Whatever our agent's connections are, that kind of feeling of signings. Yeah, it's just it feels like one of those latter day poor signings from that era. And I imagine that'll probably be it. I imagine it'll probably go that way.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I had high hopes, when we signed him. I could buy into the idea of Van Aken. Unfortunately, the reality never quite lived up to that idea, and just a bit too lightweight and a bit too easy to bully, and just didn't sort of characteristically unsuitable for English football, I would say, to the point where you really worry about the process that led to him joining us, because within minutes you could sort of tell the struggles he was going to have within the English game, which does tend to be that bit more physical, that bit more high tempo. Even as the quality improves, it's still maintaining that sort of intrinsic Englishness to it, I would say, or British, to be fair.
And I felt the games such as, was it away at Cardiff, where I think he was fantastic, kind of early on in his career, feel like a long way away. And I mean, as Wednesdayites, I think we'll all agree that the thing that very much tarnished and kind of was a turning point for him in his career at Wednesday was
the derby.
Was the derby game where we shipped 4 goals against Sheffield.
Yeah.
And he was absolutely rinsed that day.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah, we were bad as a whole, and he was the worst player in a really bad performance by a distance. So yeah, he never really got back from that, did he?
No.
Oh well, there we go. I mean, I think as I tend to agree. I think that's probably it for him. If he'll either be next season, playing with the under 23s, or he'll get some other loan abroad. He's never going to be involved with our first team again. So
no. And I think we talked about numbers in terms of transfers with that kind of tour position. And, we said, we felt the 4th centre-back should be Fornelly.
Yes.
So at that point, he was number 5. He was Rando number 5. Rando centre-back number 5, as Lee Baker would say. And, you can't just keep heaving numbers of professional football players at the squad, especially within our kind of financial means. And good luck to him. Best of luck to Mr. Van Aken.
Yeah, absolutely. We've also found out who we've got in the next leg of the now Carabao Cup, the League Cup. If we manage to get past / get a bye against Bury, we've got I think you described it previously as a plum tie against
plum tie. Exactly. Well, I guess there's the interesting notion that so what the format with the Carabao Cup is that you take the top 3, you take the 3 EFL leagues, Then you bring in the Premiership teams up to about all the teams that are in Europe, which I think is 12 out of the 20. And then we're still divided into North and South at this point. I know that kind of at one point that goes out the window, but I'm not sure when.
Yeah.
So what level of plum draw you can get at that point, there isn't really any kind of plum draws or any great money spinners. It's still us and the lower leagues essentially kind of going into this with some kind of middling prem sides such as Burnley, etc., those type of things.
Yeah.
So it's local. It's away. Obviously, I'm really happy because it's much closer to me at the New York Stadium. Not to the point where I'd consider a trip to New York to see it. But yeah, it's a local game. It's against Rotherham. It's not bad. It's not bad at all.
No, what it is winnable. If we get there,
it is that as well. It is that very much as well.
I feel that our usual tie in any cup competition is we get one of those lower Premier League sort of clodders, for want of a better word, that they
of which we aspire to be one of. To be
that's
to be
the
humble.
Dream. That is absolutely the dream.
Just paid mediocrity is what clubs like us aim for.
Sitting pretty somewhere between 15th and 10th. Drinking in all that sweet Premier League dosh. But what tends to happen is we play teams that are more than good enough that they should beat us, but they're not exciting enough to sell any tickets or make it an exciting kind of an away trip. So somebody like Burnley is absolutely classic. That's who we tend to get, because nobody's excited about playing Burnley, and if they do anything like what they should easily beat a team in our position. So that it's the worst sort of tie, in that you'd be very, very lucky to win it, and it's absolutely boring in every sense of the words. It's not going to end up on TV because nobody wants to watch more Burnley than they need to, and and it's unlikely to produce us going through to the next round, potentially getting a more exciting win. So yeah, I think on several fronts, a potential game against Rotherham is a good one. It's one to look forward to.
And then we still have to beat Bury, and they're in top form. They're unbeaten right now.
No, yeah, absolutely, 100% record this year.
100% record. When are we going to hear something about that game? It's
well, the deadline day for them is the 27th, isn't it? I think so. That's a week, and that will be either they are able to go on being a football team, or they lose their EFL license and therefore are not a football team.
Yeah.
So it's a week and 2 days at this point. Pretty grim.
It is. I feel weirdly like I kind of say that in some kind of like, I guess this is the funny thing is, like, our concerns are very much it's a drop in the ocean concern to the fabric of a long-established football league team potentially going out of business and ceasing to exist.
Yes.
I feel a little bit like, I feel like a little bit petulant by asking that, but it's the fact that there's no kind of communication on that. But I guess everyone else is in the same boat, and us, Bury, and who Bury are up against as well.
Well, they're going for, is it the fourth game now has been postponed league-wise for them, or third game?
It's just insane. Insane.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it starts to become quite a logistical problem to squeeze in all these games as well. I mean, the calendar is pretty packed. Also, one thing that would be a shame to lose, it's a good nickname, the Shakers. It's pretty fun.
It's a pretty great nickname.
It's pretty great.
It's because it's milkshake country. I believe that's the term.
Is that big milkshake?
Big milkshake, yeah.
Yeah. If only their milkshake brought more boys to the yard. Perhaps they could raise some ticket money and get out of this mess.
If they could put it on during an international break, that would be nice.
That would be good.
That would be lovely.
Anyway. It's something for another time, but the fact that the championship stops for international breaks is, to my mind, nonsense. But
it is.
I think if you had a rule where if it was like 3 players in your team were out on international duty, something like that, then
you mean like they used to have, Rich?
I mean like they used to have in the good old days. So the final bit of news is the weirdest, and that is Solomon Campbell. He's taken his sort of nascent managerial career in a new direction. So he's left Macclesfield and is now a free agent touting for business. And he's been linked with the Sheffield Wednesday job.
Born on a Monday, fired on a Friday. These are the times of Solomon Grundy Campbell.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the most bizarrest link. The thing that really scares me is the fact that this has just surged from nowhere to be. His name wasn't even in a bookie's reckoning, so now he's one of the top favourites in some of the bookmakers. And I've heard nothing else in the media regarding this other than like the Star saying, printing, barely newsprint or, the pixels for the website, being like, this is an article. This is like, look, this is something vaguely Wednesday that's going on.
But how busy is that market? So even if he doesn't officially get named the manager, Bullen only needs to see out 5 more games, and he is, by the bookies' reckoning, he's the next permanent manager. 10 games sees him through, so it's 5 more league games plus the cup games. That seems very possible, even if we end up with somebody new in the post. So I think the betting market is probably dead at this point.
Sure. So any kind of influx is just completely.
It could just be one person putting a big bet. It could be Sol Campbell betting on himself to make a news story.
Always bet on black.
As he says, yeah. His catchphrase, which we'll get to know so well if he becomes the manager. I hope there's nothing in it, because what is the point in that? Taking that extreme of a gamble on a Campbell.
Yeah. It's very left field. He has some experience managing.
Well, like 6 months, is it? Or has it actually been a year and 6 months? Have I sort of?
Which then makes you think: is it an agent connection? Is he got some connection that's having a word in Chancery's ear, or is this just completely random?
I hope it's random. I just don't see the point in taking the gamble, really. So he joined them in November. So he's been less than a year in in a management post.
Right. Or unless this just is more. Did we have this with Gray? Was there like a third, like another option that came into place that made everybody clamour for Stuart Gray to be the manager?
Maybe. Do you think he's like a stalking
lot like that? I think that, yeah. Because I don't think this is. It's a name that I think is worrying a lot of fans.
Yeah.
It would me. Maybe Solomon Campbell. Will have a fantastic career as a manager, but it's not he's not someone who screams out to me to be an option for him to further his career, nor have anybody seen any brilliant promise within what he's done so far.
It's
Made them think that this is
it's unearned, isn't it? It's the same as Lampard is at Chelsea.
yes,
It's like
yes,
maybe there is a point in the future where Frank Lampard deserves to be manager of Chelsea, but at this point in time, he's completely underqualified. And aside from kind of a residual affection, there's nothing there that means he should get that job. Nothing at all. And that's the same with Sol Campbell. I mean, he had a tremendous career as a player, captained several sides and captained his national side. But how many managers were top-class players? It's pretty rare that happens. Most managers actually were pretty average players, and some of the best managers barely played football at all.
Yeah, that's very much true.
Well, I hope there's nothing in it. I do think today's performance dampens a bit of the kind of clamour for Bullen to get the job.
Let's. I wonder if we get into that. And the first thing I want to talk about prior to the game was, and I think this is probably going to be, this wasn't something which I was hoping would be a big thing to bring up, which would carry on into the conversation. But when I kind of woke up this morning, I'm 7 hours behind yourselves in or United Kingdom, the UKKR, as I lovingly call it. And I woke up about 20 to 8, so that's about 20 minutes prior to kickoff at 8 a.m. here, Mountain Standard Time. And, check Twitter, check the lineup. And I was thinking a lot about what the lineup was going to be for this game, seeing as you don't want to change winning lineups.
Yes.
But our hand has been forced last week from the opening day win away at Reading for the game against Barnsley, which was the suspension to Kieran Westwood, and then a knock for Barry Bannon. Yeah. So that was really interesting. And then I saw some of the pre-match duties, which, I saw that, like, I didn't listen to the entire thing, but I saw some of the comments on the Wednesday Twitter, which Bullen was underlying just how frustrated Dominic Iorfa was going to be.
Right.
With, missing games, and much like he is a hulking mass of a player, is kind of just hulking.
Not an action mass. He's a hulking mass. Yeah.
He's a hulking mass, but a hulking and sulking mass that he's not getting minutes because of his suspension.
Yeah.
So I wondered about that, and I was there thinking, with the exception of Dawson, I could probably see Westwood coming back in. But I would have kept the same, with the exception of that, I would have kept the same lineup.
Yeah.
And the thing I can probably say is, like, I feel for Moses Odebajo. I think he can feel a little bit unlucky. I was kind of wondering whether, with a bit of momentum, he was starting to. It felt like he was being given the chance. Obviously, it was enforced because Iorfa was suspended.
Yeah.
But I wondered whether after the first game against Reading, which wasn't his best, I felt like he improved against Barnsley.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And I felt like maybe he was kind of trying to build up a run of minutes and a run of form and that thing. So when seeing Iorfa at right back, I felt a bit weird with that. And then Westwood came back in. And then Bannon sits out on the bench.
I think in looking at those two decisions, I know they're sort of fairly minor decisions, and nobody knew the route that the game was going to take.
Sure.
So I could see why Iorfa had been put in, because he's obviously a lot bigger, and Millwall, if nothing else, are just a team of absolute giants, really big all across the board, really. Couple of shorter midfielders, but big centre forward, big across the back line. So set pieces and things like that, having another 6-footer in there,
sure,
it makes some sense.
It did, and it wasn't like it was. The words I kind of wrote down, I just said lineup interesting.
Yes,
and it's not an interesting you've lost the plot, or it's not one of those where why isn't X playing? Oh, they must be injured. Otherwise, why would you miss them out? Because that's madness.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like one of those. It just felt like that's a choice, and by all means, I think there's some very, very mild variables in terms of lineups and players starting
Yeah.
in terms of the squad, which is fantastic now for us as Wednesdayites to look at that and think we have so many options.
Oh,
It's
definitely.
just
Yeah,
incredible.
definitely. But I think as you sort of said, what tends to win out in those scenarios is, well, they played last week and last week they won, and not only did they win last week, they won well last week and kept a clean sheet. So I think it felt especially harsh to make changes in the lineup as a result of that.
Yeah.
And I don't think Iorfa did anything particularly bad that meant that he had to be taken off at halftime. I think that was just it was a decision that was made. But I do think the other Westwood, which in some ways feels like a no-brainer, I think he had a really bad game. He really struggled, and he was directly at fault for their goal. And actually, having a bigger keeper in Dawson might have made more sense today. Now, Dawson's had patchy games before, so we could be watching this. We could be sort of sat here at the end of a game with Dawson having started and gone, "Oh, why on earth didn't we play Westwood?" That would have been a brave decision to make.
Yeah. Yeah.
But particularly with how they scored their goal, I have absolutely no doubt Dawson would have done better than Westwood there. He clearly was very bothered by the height of their team, and I mean, for want of a better word, he absolutely flapped at every single cross that came in. All of their set pieces, he butchered. Even in the second half, after the issue and after Smith had gone off, he was still doing really weird things at set pieces. But I think it's because he knew there were actually players there that could jump and head the ball, and even being allowed to use his hands, Kieran Westwood wouldn't be able to reach the ball above some of their heads. So because they did have two or three players that were that big, and I just think it got into his head, and he sort of lost the place a bit.
I think that's an incredibly fair assessment.
Yeah, but you couldn't have known that. Well, you shouldn't.
No, you shouldn't have known that.
It's not something you would say like, "Oh, Westwood, oh, he flaps at crosses," but it clearly affected him. The size of the guys in front of him seemed to play on his mind, and he overdid everything, including he was never in a million years going to get on the end of the corner that caused the goal. He was nowhere near it at any stage. He must have run 6 feet to try and chase the ball. Still ended up more than a foot away from it, and it was a very, very easy header into an open goal, purely because of him losing his mind. If he just stood still, he could have caught the ball very easily. Anyway, yeah. Before we get into the minutiae of the goal, a couple of things. I thought it was a really horrible clash of kits.
It was. I was almost wondering whether both our home kits would have been better. I know there's two different shades of blue, but with that kind of white breakup, I think that means it's
probably.
And then the shorts were the same as well.
Exactly. If they'd worn different shorts or we'd worn different shorts, that probably would have helped as well. But
yeah,
it was hard to tell. I think when the players were next to each other, you could just about divine who was in each team. But if it was somebody stood in isolation, it was almost impossible to tell whether they were a Millwall player or a Sheffield Wednesday player until they kicked the ball in the right direction.
Just as a very, very quick minor addendum to the lineups and just looking at the bench, no Forestieri today.
Yeah.
Does that mean that someone else is, or is he's lost his appeal? Like we don't know.
We've not heard anything, have we?
We've not heard anything. We're so quick and fresh with this recording that I haven't had a chance to even check any kind of post-match analysis or any kind of Dom Howson doing any words on Twitter.
No, we're just, as you say, so hot off the press. I mean, we're so hot off the press, we're quicker than the press. Is it worth
Which
just a kind
reminds me
of?
of another issue I want to bring up as well. I'm just going to quick moan about iFollow. Was your audio out of sync?
Yep, it was ahead.
Yep.
Yep, it was
I
very
felt it
annoying.
was like I was at a party and I wanted to, it was at my own place. It was a party I put on. I want to be with people. I want to feel this community of hearing, my friends. But every time I go into a conversation, it's just minor spoilers for the next episode of Game of Thrones. So I keep retreating back into my room and then I keep coming back and the same thing keeps happening again. Like I turned on the sound near the end because spoiler alert, we lost 1-0, and I knew at that point we weren't going to score, but I didn't want to have the gloss taken off a goal that I
Yeah,
thought was coming
yeah,
from the audio being ahead. So frustrating.
absolutely.
iPlayer had an off day, much like a few players today.
Does iPlayer ever have an on day? I don't know. It just always seems to be some frustration after another.
It's gotten better, but near the beginning it was, especially for the video feeds when it first started, it was pretty poor. And also the fact that I also found it very jarring with the Millwall fans doing their kind of droning.
Oh, it was really annoying. It was like the South African World Cup with the Vuvuzelas.
Vuvuzelas, yeah.
Oh, it was so aggravating. And kind of produced the same effect in that it was a dreadful game second half, just like all of that World Cup was.
You think
Oh,
we needed a what was the name of the ball? Was it I'm going to call it a jambalaya ball? Was it
oh yeah.
jambalaya? Was it jambalaya ball?
Just
It's a
make
bit.
it
It's got a
racist.
bit of spicy. It's got a bit of spice to it. It's got a bit of spice to it. You can all make the same equivalent one at home, and it won't be as good. Um, but yeah, it was that ball which took the dips, wasn't it? It was like the
Yes.
weird curvature,
Oh yeah.
which I kind of wish we'd had a ball like that, so I could blame the ball rather than the distinct lack of end products that kind of happened in a lot of the game.
Um. So I think probably what's a good idea to do is just quickly sort of run through a kind of overview of the game, and then we can kind of get to the minutiae, and then we'll kind of do our back and forth on haggling on scores for the players. So obviously we lost 1-0 to Millwall. Broadly speaking, I think before the goal we were probably the better team. We looked decent. We were playing the same 4-3-3 formation that we've been playing the other two games, and looked fairly comfortable in it. But when you play a fairly decent half hour and don't score, you start to get that kind of sinking feeling that either today's not going to be our day, or are they going to grab something here? And they kind of had a spell of 2 or 3 set pieces in a row where we just couldn't quite get out. And the end result of that was a kind of high back post header that Smith nodded in fairly comfortably. We spent the rest of the game. The last thing that happened in the first half was a sending off. Did you have any feelings on the sending off?
It was almost as late as the commentary to my visuals to the commentary. It was that late. It was late. It wasn't nice. Was it the red?
I think it feels harsh that it was a red, but you've seen them
Because I
given.
wasn't sure. You've seen them given. It was one of those. It was kind of like, I guess could be. You could ask 100 people, and our survey said 50-50, basically.
It was
In which case, it was,
yeah, it was knee high. It was uncontrolled because he had both feet off the ground. It's classic. It would have been if this was the Premier League or the Champions League. without question, it would have been a sending off. The Championship tends to let a little bit more roll. But it was interesting. The commentary, they were adamant that it was it was the worst decision they'd ever seen. What a terrible decision! Never ever a red card, maybe a yellow. All the rest of it. The player's fine. There's nothing wrong with him. And then after half time, when they'd had a chance to go down and watch the pictures back, they kind of both admitted that actually maybe it was a red card and it was a pretty nasty tackle.
So you had like a Millwall feed for your commentary.
Yeah. We had a couple of Millwall boys. Yep.
Right, because the flip side of that, with the official, none of your nefarious, sketchy black market feeds, Richie Miller. I had the official Wednesday feed, so I had Rob O'Neill.
Thanks for laying in the full name there as well. Just
I don't think you're going to come under Kosh.
Well, you never know.
Okay, you might get a nasty letter from your internet service provider.
The EFL will send the boys around.
Yeah, so like Rob O'Neill and John Pearson. John Pearson was very, very adamant. It was such an awful challenge and, could have done real damage. I don't think I would have gone that far. It was late. I didn't think it was knee high. I thought it was low, but I thought it was more the boots. It was the boots trailing off the ground. It's one of those.
Well, Kieran Lee was showing the ref where he'd been caught, and it was just under the knee. It was sort of above the shin pad, so
right,
it was pretty high.
So okay, that's probably something I probably lost from the replays.
Yeah.
In which, if you're going in that high, that is.
There's just terrible. No need for that, is there? Yeah.
No, you don't. Players would rarely get away with challenges that high, right?
Yeah. And completely out of I think sometimes you get away with things if it's kind of in the spirit of a moment. If both players are going for a hard tackle and things, you sometimes see that with Hutch. I think he kind of follows the momentum of a moment sometimes into a tackle, and I think referees are a little bit more inclined to go with you on that because it's like, okay, there was a kind of momentum to the thing. You were both bringing some pace into it. You lose a bit of control in those situations. But the fact that it was a fairly kind of cold-blooded, really nothing coming of it little moment by the halfway line.
Yeah.
I think that kind of leads to a harsher punishment because it's just like, what were you thinking diving in knee high on someone when really there's nothing at stake? There's no real movement, a build-up of sort of traction to the move. It's just a little isolated incident, and it was all him bringing that aggression into it.
Yeah, but it's such a. The first half, I want to say, this is my kind of reading. I kind of look back at some of the minutiae. The general pace of things. We were the better side in the first half.
Yes.
And that's the story of the game. I think we were very much and Millwall offered very little prior to the corner, which Matthew Smith. It's Matt Smith, but apparently is known as Matthew Smith, like a French pronunciation.
Really?
This is what I follow wanted to tell me.
Wow.
Which I'm going to go off and Google while we talk about that because I can't believe that is a thing.
One of my notes is.
Oh, it is. It's Matthew James Smith. That's his full name, but known as Matt Smith.
Okay.
Weird.
One of my notes is that he is the living embodiment of that Millwall spirit, a man made entirely of elbows and knees. I think Lee's always struggles with him. I think anybody that is an imposing figure. Tom Lees just seems to forget what he's about, and we've seen it. We've seen Matt Smith has played against us, I think, for about 4 or 5 different teams. He really is a bit of a journeyman, isn't he?
Oh yeah.
but he seems to always have that over Tom Lees. We always make him look really good when he's not. He's really bad. But was it last season against Rotherham? He just ran the show. He looked unbelievable. Could chest it down if he wanted to. He could nod it down. He could do keepy uppies. It's a weird thing.
I don't know what the story is. Why he's I didn't even realize he joined Millwall. I'll be honest.
No, I didn't. But then it makes absolute sense. He's sort of been a Millwall player all his life.
I guess he was a transfer signed. It looks like he had another year on his deal from QPR. So it looks like it is some type of financial deal that was had to bring him to Millwall. Yeah.
I thought
a player who we always struggle with.
Was that, sorry?
A player who we always struggle against. And I think that's very much. I'm copying. I feel this is an observation that you've made a lot previously about Smith, and Smith with going up against Lees, and how Lees isn't the winner in that duel.
No. Bristol City it was that he was at, I think, last year that Bristol looks like QPR. Anyway, I do remember we had a game and we were just like it was a team that we absolutely should have done much better against on the whole. It might have been Bristol City. It might have been that game where at the very end we managed to snatch a result out of it. But he does, he always gives us headaches. I thought we were better in the first half, and obviously we were better in the second half because they did absolutely nothing. But I thought we looked a little bit lightweight in midfield. I was surprised to see that three play again away from home, because I think you lack a bit of bite when it's Reach, Lee, and Sam Hutchinson. Obviously, Hutchinson doesn't lack for bite, but I think I'd probably like away from home. I'd be surprised if that plays very often, those three. I would have maybe been tempted if we were making changes. I would have maybe been tempted to put Luongo in there just to see how he goes as part of that three. But anyway, this is all speculative. The second half, after they went down to 10 men, they purely just sat back and sort of pumped it long.
What did you? So I kind of joined in probably a couple of minutes late. Usually what I find I do is I go off and just take a break from, watching, just to check a few different apps and stuff on my phone.
Yeah.
Usually like a minute or two out. So I completely missed the fact that Iorfa went off for Bannon, which I thought was really... I'm always glad and happy to see Bannon. I just don't know why we needed to... I don't really know why we need to redefine things in terms of formation to bring in Bannon.
I will say more than the result, the substitutions. I think that the changes made before the kickoff didn't put us in the best position to win the game anyway. But I think everything that happened from halftime onwards was just strange. I think there was very weird subs. And it reminded me, we had a few games like that under Stuart Gray, where now Stuart Gray, I think, one of these things, if you could go back and replay a different situation and take a different route, I would have loved to have seen Stuart Gray given a chance with the money that Carlos was allowed to spend that summer. I think that could have been a really interesting experiment, because he obviously was a great coach and a great defensive coach. And it would have been interesting to see whether that is the kind of limit of his skills, or whether actually given some money to spend, he could have introduced a bit of flair to a very solid team that he put together. But
we were about as, under that, we were about as defensive as Millwall were today, weren't we? They
pretty much. It was your first job, no matter where you played, was to make sure that you were minding your P's and Q's defensively. Absolutely. But what was frustrating in those games under Gray, and it was more understandable because he didn't have the choices, but when we had games like today where we were absolutely in a position where There's nothing coming back from this opposition. We need to go for it.
Yeah.
We spoke about putting the meat on the fire. This is the time. Put the meat on the fire. But he would lose. His substitutions were basically put every attacking person on and neglect that it has to actually be a functioning nation to make things happen. And that's exactly what we did today.
So when Bannon came on, I kind of wrote that it looked a different beast. I mean, after we conceded the goal, I think immediately after that, not that I thought the tempo was slow, but we did up the tempo.
Yes.
And the pace on things. There seemed to be a bit of a desire to get back into this more so than before, but I think that's kind of harsh on previous to the goal. But anyway, it's just in the passage of play that just kind of happened. And when Bannon came up, things opened up a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
Not hugely.
They gave us 2/3 of the pitch. Things naturally were opening up. And I do think Bannon is a good person to have in that situation. He loves looking up. He loves that time. He loves looking up and picking passes. But I think it's, like you said, it's not so much. I think bringing Bannon on is a very sensible decision. Bringing him on for Iorfa and therefore switching round, therefore changing the defence and changing the midfield makes a lot less sense. Because then we had Hutchinson. So we lose Hutchinson, who's great at driving forward. I said last week, he's so direct that he makes things happen when he's there, even though naturally he's a defender.
So if you would have done that, the player you would have would have been a harsh sacrifice. I think it was a sacrifice for any player to be taken off at that point.
Absolutely.
Which is why a second half substitution. I really hope that Lee Bullen dealt with it in the best way he could. Because I really hated the sheer amount of. Do you remember the sheer amount of halftime substitutions we faced under Yoss?
Yes.
It was criminal.
Yeah, it's
criminal. Just how much
he clearly didn't understand the significance of a halftime substitution in English football, but that is tough on Iorfa.
It's really harsh on Iorfa.
Spent the first two games out and then subbed at halftime, which is really. It's a statement to take somebody off at half-time. They've absolutely failed. That's what it says.
Yeah, which, I mean, if you would have sacrificed somebody for the sake of pace, one of the midfield three, and I'd probably say, as harsh as it is, as much as I love him, I'd probably say Kieran Lee.
Yes. That was the change to make.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's because we're in such infancy with Bullen. Just to kind of jump ahead, but my overall kind of view of the game was it was such madness in terms of the substitutions and the formations and the dynamicism that it was such a weird game anyway prior to that in the first half. It could have worked. We were watching in just sheer madness of football.
Yes.
Really were. So, I mean, it could have worked. So I don't think that I'm damning towards what it is, but
I think we can't sit here and go, if you'd done X, Y, and Z, we would have won. You can't do.
No, because it very much felt like it was just one of those days where I don't think it was going to work.
It was a weird game, like you say, and I think they defended resolutely. They did well. I think
Millwall defensively did incredible. The thing that really, really, really hurts is the fact that attacking, they were terrible. They were poor. But yet they had that one moment and they capitalized. And this is football. This is what football is. You can be hurt in those moments.
Well, it also felt that they
change the game.
They knew how to hurt us. They knew if they could get set pieces, they'd get at us. Leeds, Borna, not very tall centre-backs. Their two centre-backs are massive. Fletcher competes well in the air, but again, he's no giant. So they knew that they would get chances from set pieces, and they worked that moment. They basically sat back, managed to work a moment towards the end of the first half where they got a run of those set pieces. So they got to get their eye in, they got to get themselves set up. and they got a goal from it. I don't think we had any idea how to hurt them. We had no clue how we were going to break down that defence, and it got worse. The substitutions, I think, were desperate and poorly thought out. This might be me being too harsh, and we'll have weeks to kind of see how this result stands in the face of things. But I think the first substitution was a weird choice, and I think the other two were frankly baffling.
I mean, I came into, I think it was the sheer adrenaline from watching the game and the frustration, but I felt like I was going to come into this podcast just as a kind of mini madman, just because it was so bizarre. And to the point where I almost felt like saying as a note this would be a great game to go back and watch if you go on to get promotion. Like, this would be a really good match to go back and watch and be like, what were we worried about? What a strange day at the office that was in the campaign, which was positive.
But for all of our, I dipped very briefly into Twitter, and there was a few people sort of banding around stats. I think we had 70% or more possession in the second half.
Yeah, I believe that.
We had 20-some shots. It's hard to think of many good chances we had. We might have had 20 shots, but
no. I mean,
there was there was that one very good tackle, the ball that would have gone into Fletcher. That was a really good tackle. That was a great bit of defending. Bannon had a good shot, kind of poked through from the edge of the area, but I'm really struck. And obviously, Rhodes had a header from a set piece that he put wide.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just my general reaction to Rhodes this afternoon. I mean, the first half was funny. It was funny because there was some really good play linking up to. Palmer had a shot which was palmed wide, and it was some great play. In the middle, Reach today I thought was great in the first half. He was just fantastic in the middle. He seemed like he was just making things happen.
Did it feel like the sort of performance where you thought, oh, what we need to do is put him in left back and lose him entirely from the game? Was it that sort of performance, Luke?
It was that sort of, yeah. And then, even Adam Reach almost had another goal of the season. About the half-hour mark, he just nonchalantly just swung his foot to the half volley and nearly crashed it into the net, and it just went over the bar. It wasn't that far off for something so speculative.
Yes.
But again, he's a player of that talent that I guess any time he just swings his foot at something, it could end up in gold. The pretty high possibility up in
absolutely
gold. So
he has a foot like a traction engine.
So that's the interesting thing. We had some better chances in the first half. And the second half, a lot of clip balls out to the wing or clip balls into the center, and then just not really just not for the delight of Rhodes and Fletcher. They weren't the type of balls that we could really capitalize on. And I don't think, it was bad. I completely agree with you that I don't think we knew how to hurt Millwall today.
But I think there's two. If a team is sat in like that, there's two things you can do. Especially when you've got, I'll come to this later, but when you've got an option on the bench that makes it very hard to do what they're doing, you should bring that option on. That will be my second point. My first one is one of the ways that you beat a team that's just sat in against you is you have shots from distance. So Reach should have led the charge. I don't know why we took Reach away from the middle of the pitch, because he's the only guy that is going to do what you said in the first half. It doesn't even need to be a particularly great setup. He will have a shot, and it could well go in the top corner, and it will be from nothing. He's the only player in the team that does it.
Just as well, we're talking about in the bizarre form. So, as it kind of went, Bannon went off. I didn't know. So what happened at that point? Like, Palmer was still on the pitch.
Hutchinson went to right back is what happened.
Right. Okay. Because that feels okay. I made that connection later. I'm doing a lot of like Pepe Sylvia kind of red line connections.
Yes, yeah.
Because it was just such madness, and it felt like a crime scene. I'll be honest. It felt like if we wanted to do a theme episode, Rich, this would be the true crime murder, serial. This is our own serial. I know there's the other serial, which is David Jones' serial, but we'd have to do a different serial. And I want to say when the substitution was made where Leeds went off for Rhodes, as a complete side note, if Leeds is 5, then Rhodes is 6, and Harris is 7, these squad numbers are definitely not going to heaven. Rhodes is 6? I mean, I knew
it's so
Kieran Lee is 5. Yeah, I know we've had a few years of being like, whatever, but Rhodes is, jeez. To just nonchalantly reference the Pixies.
Yeah, very good. No, I was so confused. I convinced myself I couldn't quite tell who was who last week when they were sort of warming up, when they were sort of knocking the ball around at half time. But with the number 6, I was like, is that Bates then? Is that? And then I was really confused when he was coming on towards the end of the game. I was like, they're taking Fletcher off for Bates? But no, it's Jordan Rhodes. I mean, Bates would probably have done a better job, but
I think Rhodes should have like a 99 because he can try and argue that he's twice as good as a number 9, and also because he likes a nice soft serve ice cream from the Mr. Lippy van. Does our job. So 4-2-4. Yeah, so it was Hutch at right back and Reach at left back.
Yeah.
Awful.
Really
Awful. But I was watching it being like, this is madness that it could. I felt like a goal was coming.
Oh, I never had that feeling.
But then I saw the minutes just dwindle away. That second half went quickly. I'll tell you,
it did.
Wasn't a long game of football.
I think because there was absolutely no peril for us. What's interesting is they clearly knew how the game was going to go, Millwall. Like, they made the decision. When they took Smith off, for Bradshaw, that was essentially them saying, we are just going to sit here and knock it long. Because what we've done in putting Bradshaw on is we've put a nippy guy up there so that we at least keep you honest. But we are making no pretense that we are going to play this game at all. Because we can't build the game.
I guess the interesting thing is that we've often watched a lot of football managers at Wednesday make very incremental, conservative substitutions.
Yeah.
Today it wasn't. Today, like the the traps are open, for all that stuff. It was, it was madness.
Well, it's like I say, it was substitutions made because they were who's attacking, get them on. It wasn't substitutions made on a game plan.
But it also shouldn't.
Sorry. We're both excited.
We are. Do you want to finish off your point?
Well, no, but that's where the choice to make towards the end of that game, and I might get criticism for saying this, but Ati Nuyu is the person. When a team is sat on their goalkeeper's feet.
Thank you.
Ati Nuyu is the person.
Exactly. This is the point I wanted to make. I feel like the substitutions, it was also madness, but near the end, like, I would have carried on with the madness. The only thing I would have said was, get Ati on. Get Mr. Nuyu on. That was my complete thing. Yeah. Rhodes was completely the wrong substitution.
I'm prone to histrionics and kind of being a bit overzealous with things, particularly when it comes to Sheffield Wednesday. But at 65 minutes, I was sat here watching the game with my sister, who she spends a lot of time hearing my feelings on all things Wednesday. And I said we might as well turn it off because that we are not going to score now. There was one sort of slight header, but to watch, what baffles me is the thinking process that goes into that substitution, and that is what worries me going forward, because I don't understand somebody who watched the first 20 minutes of that half and thought, do you know what we need here is Jordan Rhodes. I can't get myself.
Yeah, yeah.
I like to feel I'm quite good at empathizing with people and seeing their position, but I can't put myself in the shoes of somebody that thinks, do you know what? We've not had the ball anywhere near a chance. We've not had a six, a scuffle in the box or anything like that.
How much do you think of that is knowing that we have a player that we pay so much that we have to? Maybe Bullen's seeing some stuff in training. Maybe Bullen's a bit like, I feel like our kind of conversations previously of Rhodes, in which I'm still, as a fan, very much, still kind of really hoping that there's some goodness still to come.
Yeah.
From something that's been, rather disappointing so far for such a sizable trend.
Yeah.
So maybe there's that. I don't know. But it was definitely the game for Atdi to come on. I'm really glad you said that. That was a point I wanted to make.
Yeah.
And I just said the Rhodes, I think, his first blocked snapshot just made me sigh, and that just kind of summed up the game.
Yeah.
And then we'll, even then getting onto his his technically nice looking but glancing headers wide or over the bar,
Oh, they drive me insane.
I know.
They do. But Nuyu is the person that he has that physicality that you can't do anything with. You just have to.
Yeah, exactly.
We've all seen it. We've had games where we've been 2-0 down at halftime and we bring on Nuyu, and you see the defense having to have a chat about how they're going to deal with Nuyu. Just certain people have those gifts. And in that situation, that's who we needed to bring in, because he changes the dynamic. They can't defend in that exact same way because there's somebody there that they simply will not be winning headers against. Now, Nuyu's not a wonderful header of the ball himself, but you then end up in a kind of, infinite number of monkeys with typewriters. Eventually, Ati Nuyu will make something happen in that situation.
Either scoring or creating space for someone else.
Or writing the complete works of Shakespeare.
Yeah, when Adley comes on, the point I was going to make is a really kind of crass analogy. The defenders are considering pooing their pants.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm really glad you went with that.
Oh yeah, I'll write that one.
There was a brief moment where I thought you were going to be like, no, that's terrible. Get back in your box, Luke.
So I had all of this frustration with the Millwall commentary team relishing every bit of time wasting like they'd never seen the like of it before. Oh, Bart's gone over there. They called the goalkeeper Bart. Bart's gone over there, and he's only knocked the ball a bit further away from himself, hasn't he? Oh, do you know, they've got into the crowd there, and they're not getting that ball back, are they?
So you didn't get to join in on the Game of Thrones spoilers party.
It was still ahead of time.
But at least I felt that I was amongst friends in my situation as opposed to you.
No, not amongst friends. No, they were channeling their inner Billy Davises to their full extent, confirming my psychological theory that it's id, ego, super ego, then Billy Davis.
That's very true.
The true Scottish man at the heart of all of us. Should we do scores? Does that feel timely?
Yeah. You've just made me remember that time where we played against Forest. I don't know if it was exactly the game. It might have been the game. Yeah, we played against Forest. I think we lost at home to Forest. Billy Davis was managing Forest. And then him saying something along the lines of, it might be in this game or a different game, but I'm pretty sure it was a game against Wednesday. If it was a boxing match, it would have been ended. And I was like, but it bloody isn't, Billy. It's a football game. Oh, the man just winds me up chronically. He's the Clinton Morrison of managers. He's like they said, one thing when we signed Clinton, there were, like people said, he's one of those you want to have pissing out.
Yes.
You know the bad egg kind of analogy.
Yes, inside the tent.
And why bad eggs urinate? I don't know, but it sounded good. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Player ratings.
Player ratings. So neither of us has sat down and kind of gone through line by line and build up scores ahead of time, but we're going to sort of settle on scores between us.
We'll do it on the fly.
An opening bid for Kieran Westwood.
6.
Okay.
I felt that I didn't. It's interesting. I'm really glad you came in the reading that you did of Kieran Westwood, which I thought was incredibly fair and a decent assessment. It was very good reading, Rich. Kudos to you. I'm going to give your reading an 8 out of 10.
Oh, thank you.
There you go. But I felt like if he did flap at the corner completely, and yeah, it did feel like a small. It felt like an ice age past the time it took for him to try and get to the ball in that corner. But other than that, I mean, he didn't really have much else to do. I mean, there was one shot which I think was a shot which he did a very kind of stylish continental parry over the bar for.
Yeah, that was nice. Yeah,
that was lovely. But other than that, there's nothing else to do. It was such a weird day at the office because that's the thing. If we talk about Millwall, they defended manfully and incredibly, but attacking wise, they were poor. But I guess they didn't need to. I guess you get 1-0 up and you just defend, and against us, you don't need to.
More importantly, the fans were just happy with that as well. Like they relished doing a number on us in a way that I don't think we tend to. At Hillsborough, I think we would have got annoyed that we weren't doing anything.
They were getting out their Jellied Eels Vuvuzelas.
Oh, they were loving it. Bit of pie mash. It's going to be, shut that door. Oh, I love it. Not many Millwall fans sound like that.
They did. It was like Danny Baker just came in. Just
tweeting racist pictures left and right.
So you're implying that me and him fit right? Oh no, I'm not. I'm not racist. I've just said one or two things.
No, Danny Baker.
Danny Baker is, yeah.
So,
what did you think about Kieran Westwood?
I tend to agree. I think 6 is maybe slightly generous because as a goalkeeper, he didn't have very much to do, and what he had to do in the first half, he didn't do particularly well. But I'm happy enough with the 6. It wasn't great. It's the sort of performance from him that I think if I was a team watching, I'd be saying, "Oh right, he's not good at set pieces. Get in and around him, kind of crowd him out. He's not good at it." Which I wouldn't have said previously, but who knows? I mean, people change. He's getting older. Maybe he doesn't trust the defense in front of him. Who knows? But do
you think hopefully, touch wood, it was contextual to the nature of the game?
It needs to be, I think.
So I hope that, from your kind of reading, he started, much like defenders against New, considered pooing his pants at the state of just how the Millwall Giants, at set pieces.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
He didn't look. He didn't look anywhere near assured today.
No.
Maybe 6 is generous.
I think it's maybe we do 5.5 or 5.75.
Let's agree on 5.5.
Okay, cool. So Iorfa comes next in the way I draw a team.
I really feel for him because he was the first half. He was a little bit quiet. Definitely, if I look at the 2 fullbacks, the better of those I would say is Palmer.
Yes.
The first half, Palmer was really good down the left wing. Him and Harris were just having a great time together. Great buddy cop. Summer blockbuster there. Iorfa and Murphy less so. Less chemistry.
they've played together less, haven't they?
I guess they play together less. Yeah, there is that element. So it's just disappointing for him that he came back. He looked okay. He was all right.
Yeah.
And I would have liked to have seen more of him had we not gone for the formation experiments.
Yeah, I think both. I think Palmer was really can feel pretty hard done by as well in terms of getting subbed off. But we'll get cross that bridge when we get to it.
So I offer maybe a 6.
Yeah, I don't think he did anything wrong. He also didn't do anything great.
No, do you want to give him a 6.5? I think that's
as like a little generous, a little bump of 0.5%, half a score, just to kind of make him feel better.
Wee little tap on his bum.
Yeah, he can nurse himself with that. Do we score Bannon now because he sort of shared a place in the match with Ayor for half and half, or do we wait?
I think we go through we go front, we go back to front,
lineup.
So to speak. Starting lineup.
Okay, so Tommy Lees.
So do you want to flip to the left back berth with Mr. Liam Palmer?
Can do if you want. Yeah. So I think
he was good. He was first half he was great. I think the second half, I don't know. I think the big turning point is his yellow card.
Yes.
Which I was the reason why we hauled him off, because I felt that whoever the official was getting a bit thirsty for trying to even things out.
Oh. So
and then we weren't like the Stuart Gray side that you say minding our P's and Q's. Palmer was probably the one who was weak for the yellow, which actually, I did you look at the challenge? Did you play that? Did they play that back on your feed?
Yeah. I presume we probably saw the same feed, even though
I think we saw the same feed. You just had different commentary.
Yeah.
So what did your Millwall friends eke about that, between the mouths and cheeks being full of jellied eels?
Between mouthfuls. Oh man. No, it's never a send off there. No, it's definitely not a send off, but you could see if he'd done it in a moment, he would have maybe sent him off, but it's really not a sending off. So I think a yellow card is fair, is what they said.
Oh, that's kind of seems like, I mean, the O'Neill and Pearson were going on about how the Millwall bench were up in arms about it.
I think they were. I think they tried. I mean, there's always
Palmer, but I mean, I guess it's one of those where I think Palmer got the ball, but it just looks bad. Palmer did get the ball. It was a legitimate tackle, but it was he kind of like checked him while he was going in on the slide.
But we just know that, like Thanos, referees love balance, and once you send one person off, they're just looking for that opportunity to dish out another red, aren't they? So yeah, exactly. I think it's sensible. It was sensible in kind of game management to take Palmer off. Whether Luongo was the best person to take him off for is another question.
I'm really not a fan of breaking up that back 4, back 5.
Yeah.
Which I think we'll get on to. How did you feel about the centre backs? Burner, not Borner, as we've been mispronouncing.
Burner, yeah. I thought they were largely okay. Again, they didn't have much to do outside of the goal, really.
Which, I mean, if we talk about that goal, I think I kind of analysed it like Westwood comes out and flaps. Lees is just like, he looks a bit scared.
Yeah.
And then the back post, I think it was Harris who was the man who was. I think he did.
Yeah.
To be fair to Harris, I don't think he had a complete clue what was going on.
No.
It was quite a triple act of comedy for that defending for that goal.
I don't know whether. I don't expect this from Lees, because we know what he can do now and what we know what he's good at and what he's not so good at. But I do wonder in situations like that whether there's a bit of an opportunity for somebody like Burner to drive us forward a bit more. I mean, we were pretty much on the front foot the whole time, but just
he
having
had a
those
few
touches,
promising moments.
he sort of set himself up for a 1-2, didn't he? At one point, that was quite good.
I feel like he had a shot at some point, didn't he?
Yeah, I think there was one though when he kind of chipped it out wide and then charged into the box. And maybe a bit more of that energy might have been useful at times, just to kind of break things up.
I feel for that element, I think he was. I think a recurring theme, and I don't want to be too harsh to Mr. Tom Lees, but Burner's been the better of the two. I think on both on 3 occasions so far this season.
Yeah,
what I've seen. And I don't know if it's just Burner's just looking more active or more involved in a few bits and bobs here and there. I don't know whether it's just my mentality of looking at that. I'm sure Lees is doing a lot more than I'm giving him warrant for.
I think he's just got a very assured manner, Burner. I think which I think bodes well. Those two I thought did fine. It wasn't their fault that we lost this game.
No, there was nothing wrong defensively as a centre back pairing defensively for us today.
And they managed them second half. You know, really, they had nothing. They got nothing going whatsoever second half.
And generally defensively, even at the fullbacks, we had nothing to really do today.
No.
I was wondering about Palmer. What did we say for Palmer? What are we going to give?
We didn't give him a score.
Give him a 7.
Okay, yeah, works for me.
I
think the other two
had a bit more of a challenge defensively against their winger today.
Right. But I thought he looked really. When it was like a football match, the first half, I thought Palmer looked really good.
What was the second half in comparison?
Like a really annoying training exercise. That's what
I think it looked like WrestleMania improv.
WrestleMania improv.
Like an unscripted wrestling match where everyone's yes-anding and it's just a mess.
Yeah.
The plot lines are all over. No one can follow who the bad guy is. No one can follow what's going on.
Too many heel turns and face turns.
Yeah, it's a lot of that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of that.
I think Lees probably deserves a 7, and maybe Burner gets a 7.5, maybe.
I agree with you completely.
Cool. This is good. It's good. You know, they say that good broadcasting comes from conflict, so it's good to agree on so many things. So right wing Murphy. I thought he was a bit frustrating today.
Yeah, he wasn't. His end product was pretty poor. Yeah, he looks a bit. I think this is the thing with Murphy, is that I think he can look. I'm beginning to see why I think other fans who've watched him play at their respective clubs say he looks a bit lightweight, doesn't he?
I also think he seems to he tends towards like running himself down a corridor, like a cul-de-sac, rather than doing anything kind of particularly effective. Like he'll try and beat the man again rather than put the ball in, which is a kind of classic winger's trait, but he does seem to have a few of those ticks that go along with that position.
Yeah.
But to be fair to him and Harris today, when the opposition just sits like that, that's not a pacey winger. It makes your job pretty difficult. What you live on is space in behind, and when there's just no space in behind, your job does get a lot harder. But I thought Harris dealt better with that frustration than Murphy did. I just thought he didn't add very much to the game and gave the ball away a lot, pretty tamely. How do we pick off the guys in the middle there then? Hutch maybe first as the deepest lying of the three.
Let's do it. Yeah, Hutch was really good today.
Yeah.
I really, really liked Hutch, and it felt like, I know obviously he went back and filled in that right back berth, and he did fine with that. I'll be honest, it wasn't so. My complaints aren't against Hutchinson, so to speak, and how he can fill in and do a job in that respect. It was more the fact that we're seemingly getting all our square pegs ready for all these round holes.
Yeah, there was a couple of times where the fact he is not a natural crosser of the ball didn't help us.
Yeah.
But that's not his fault. He did fine in the position. I just wish he hadn't been put in that position. It's not absolutely not his fault.
So I was unsure in the first half. He was spraying a lot of balls in the first half. We didn't seem to build it through. We didn't seem to build it through the middle a lot in the first half. So when he was kind of deep, he seemed to kind of fill. Maybe he was feeling the need to kind of fill in a little bit of that Bannon kind of role with a deep line playmaker.
He loves that role. When we have bad performances, quite often they're both fighting each other to drop in and do that because they both love doing that. And then what happens is they end up with like one of them is almost playing sweeper, like he's behind the centre backs to try and get that lovely little patch of space to work his quarterback magic.
He had a few shots, didn't he, Hutchinson?
I think, he sort of did. He did his bit going forward. Not so much second half. I mean, anyway. So what were you going to say? You said,
So
we didn't give Murphy a score. Sorry. We should probably do that.
Oh, Murphy was poor. Let's give him a 5.5.
Yeah. Okay. Works for me. And then Hutch
was good, but so I guess maybe I'm just thinking of one shot I think he had on target.
Okay.
Hutchinson, but which actually felt like he had more shots than a lot like our strikers.
Yeah.
So I want to give him a 7.5. I think he was very good.
I go along with that.
Yeah.
Kieran Lee was a bit quieter today than he's been in some other games.
Yeah, not being the strength for the past two games, I'd say, for Kieran Lee. Good.
I think the physicality of it got to him a little bit, which is understandable given that he's had a nightmare of a couple of years with injuries. That sort of game and the sort of tackle that he was put, he had sort of carried out on him for. I can see why he sort of went quiet a little bit, because that potentially is all that hard work and effort going to the ground, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the only thing. I think we were the better team in the first half, but I thought they were kind of winning the kind of fight side of things. They were sort of biting into tackles a bit more and just looked a bit like they had a bit more about them than us in the middle. That's why I think potentially if we were going to put Luongo in, maybe today he would have been a better choice than Lee, just for sort of those, just nipping at them and kind of keeping them on their toes.
Yeah.
In terms of the physical side of things. So obviously then he was subbed off at 65 minutes, which is everyone's favourite time to make a substitution. What score wise? 6.5?
6.5.
Yeah, he didn't have much effect on the game, but again, he didn't do anything wrong either.
Yeah. Moving on to Adam Reach.
Greasy Bob himself.
Greasy Bob. Very good. I really liked in the first half how he was getting up there, keeping things ticking over. Looked definitely in that first half like he was someone who, was making things work and having a very, very good game for his standards. Again, but much like Hutchinson, who I thought was doing really well, and Hutchinson, just going back to him, like breaking things up in that CDM role.
Yeah.
Again, why are we sacrificing these players doing well in their positions for some madman formation changes?
I don't know. The what happened with Reach is the most, and I'm sure because he's a pretty self-confident guy. I'm sure he'll be, the WhatsApps he'll be sending to friends and family will probably be to this effect. But he's the guy to make a difference today. Like when the defense is pushed back like that, actually having your kind of battle ram wingers doesn't work anymore. They're all the way back, so you can't push them back any further. What you need then is the nuance and the skill. So what we should have done is put Reach front and center. He either should have been in the middle, just given free rein to run around and take shots, or he should have been on one of the wings to make sure that the quality coming from the wings was higher than what we were getting from Harris on his left foot, or Murphy wasn't even crossing it half the time. Murphy sort of running into the centre back after he's beaten the fullback. Reach should have been a big part of our attack, and it's baffling that he ended up at fullback.
I know.
Even then, he was trying desperately to get into the game. He was trying to be everywhere and being our best defender actually several times. That is the biggest missed opportunity and a big bit of mismanagement. What happened with Adam Reach today, and I think possibly he's our man of the match, and he would have been man of the match if he was allowed to do what he should have been allowed to do second half. It should have been his game.
I just had a weird kind of flash forward, or just a fantasy in my head, like if Reach could have doubled up with Harris on the left berth.
Yeah.
That could have, if they developed that kind of Palmer-Harris relationship, that would have been incredible. But it was not the time in the game to ever see if that could have worked,
No. And again, those partnerships, that kind of crossover, the overlap, is all built on the team being a bit further forward.
Yeah.
Because it's running the legs of the fullback out with the winger, then flicking the ball to the fullback who's at full pelt. So you have to go from stop to start. You can't make that happen when the team is literally 6 feet off the byline. There's no room for that to happen. We could have maybe had positions where Harris occupied Romeo and then flicked it back to Reach. That didn't happen either, but I suppose potentially that could have happened.
Yeah.
He really stood out, Romeo, considering how troublesome Harris has been for opposition defences. I thought Romeo did a bang-up job against him, really.
Yeah.
It was really good to see them go back and forth because they're clearly both very good players and very fine specimens as well. It was really fun to sort of see them tussle it out. It would have been even nicer if we had something positive to show out of it, but it was a good back and forth.
Going back to Reach, would you? Because I feel like points against him are points against, the role he had to play. It's the same thing with Hutchinson. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
7.5.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you started talking about the fine form of Kadeem Harris.
Yes. I thought he played really well again.
He was really good, and I was disappointed for him that nothing happened for him in that position. But I don't think that was any fault of his own.
Yeah. He cut in a little bit more today than he's done previously. I think Bannon, our manager Bannon. No, I think Bullen sort of made a point of saying that he likes his wingers to go cross from the byline and cross with the outside foot kind of thing. So I think we've seen that most of that from Harris is crossing with his left foot. He mixed it up a little bit more today and with good effect often. it was just very difficult. It was hard. Their centre backs are those classic big kind of League One style head everything that moves centre backs, and we just didn't get anything going really from the flanks. I was probably one of the best chances we had to actually score was a Harris run when he sort of just burst across the box, and I can't remember who he picked out. I'm blanking on it now.
Mm-hmm.
But he kind of opened up the goal, and Millwall players were throwing themselves between him and the goal to stop him shooting, and he picked out a good pass. Would that maybe have been the one for Hutch? It was someone unexpected. It wasn't.
Could be.
It wasn't Fletcher or Rhodes.
Was it the Bannon shot? The Bannon shot that was pushed.
Might have been Bannon.
Oh, Harris didn't do very well with the follow-up. The Bannon had a really...
that was it, because that was
the way, and
that's one of our better chances.
Yeah, and then he spooned it over the bar. Yeah.
No, again, it's just good things from him, really.
Yeah. And also, talking about... So he was up against, you said Romeo? He was up against?
Romeo. Yeah.
Who... They did incredibly. I said overall, collectively, I think they did pretty well dealing with us.
Yeah.
But I don't think Harris is going to have as many. Harris is going to have a lot better battles against right backs.
Yeah.
Or defenders on the right side than he did today. I think as you said, Romeo did fantastically against him. And I think on other days, he'll do a lot better in those matchups.
There'll be very few people that can match him stride for stride all game, because he seems to be not just quick, but very well conditioned in that he's able to do it all game.
Yeah.
And it's pretty outstanding that somebody was able to keep up with him, and there will not be many right backs who are able to keep up with him for 90 minutes. I'd be very surprised if this isn't amongst his toughest games that he has for us. So do we think, does the way we're talking, does that mean he's maybe a little notch ahead of Hutch and Reach?
I think so. I think it's a 7.5, but I think you probably put a little star against him that he's the
MOM.
He is the MOM.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Anything to say on the subs? Bannon?
Well, we've completely forgotten about Fletcher.
Oh, balls! Sorry.
Which I think is kind of the thing today.
I think he did his usual sort of.
Fletcher was good.
Shift, yeah.
He was great in the first half. The kind of that drive through the middle and the link-up play with like Reach and Fletcher. There was some really nice play, definitely in the first half.
I think that's it. We keep contrasting second half, first half, and I think it's worth doing because it was so completely different. And it's almost like an open play, set play type thing. What we in American sports terms, you'd have a team that you put on in the situation we were in. You'd have like a power play team that was a specialist at breaking down a team that's just sat watching you play. And a lot of the players we had on the pitch were not guys that are going to be particularly good at that. So all of our bags of pace is completely wasted when a team just will not move forward at all. And a lot of the work that Fletcher does is outside the box. He's not a box striker. So he needs to work spaces and things like that. And having that taken away from him, it's almost like he's held back from showing the full range of what he's able to do.
Yeah, it was a very congested Millwall box.
Yeah,
at the time,
and he just doesn't shine. He's not a poacher. He doesn't shine in that situation. It doesn't work for him.
Which is why we needed Andy New.
Exactly.
Damn it! Oh. Anyway, Fletcher, what do you think marks wise? Do you think like a 6.5?
Yeah, 6.5 maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I apologise wholeheartedly for forgetting his existence.
That's fine.
It was more of a heartfelt apology to Stephen.
And then with the substitutions, we'll go in order that they came on. So Bannon was our second half introduction.
Yep. I think Bannon did exactly what we would have wanted him to do. He made sure the ball moved quicker. He dictated the tempo.
Yeah.
Played some lovely sort of straighter passes in over the top. Again, it's hard to play a ball in behind a defence that's just not left any space in behind. So it was really trying to chisel out some chances. But he did what he would, he did what he was there to do. He had a good shot that we talked about that maybe could have produced a goal. It just got increasingly difficult for us to do anything because the whole game happened about a third of the pitch away from their goal, and that just made life very difficult. Bannon can score from distance, but he scores once in a blue moon. He's not really what you'd call a threat from that distance. I don't know whether Luongo's got more of that in his locker. I don't really know the type of goals he's scored previously. What did you think about Bannon's performance?
Bannon was good. Yeah, it's very Bannon-esque. It's just Bannon-esque without a Bannon end product.
Yeah.
So adding a +1 on that score sheet, really. That's the only thing I think really missing. I don't know much what else I'd really would have expect from him, and I don't know. But because we couldn't capitalize on any moments of Bannon brilliance in the game, I feel like, again, he's taking points against him because of that, really.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really know what else I'd want him to do.
If we brought the passing ability...
Other than maybe just out of nowhere, just banging a screamer from like 30 yards.
It's one for the season.
There's one or two comes out with for the season. Yeah.
Remember that goal he scored against Derby? Oh my goodness,
that was lovely.
That was a game as well.
His goal against Chelsea.
Oh yeah, one of those. That would have been nice.
Any one of those, Barry. I'll leave it to you to decide which one. Just get this ball into that net from 30 yards.
Luongo?
Did we give a mark for Bannon?
Well, we haven't previously given marks for subs, I don't think, but we can do. He played half the game after
all. But I want to.
You want to? Okay, go for it.
Why? I'm gonna give him a 7. Let's give him a 7.
Yeah.
And then this interesting one. How did you feel Action Mass did?
I don't think he did anything. I honestly can't point to one thing he did.
In Action Mass.
I don't think it's his fault. I don't know why. So Bannon, I can make a sense of. I don't know why you took Iorfa off for him, but I think Bannon did the job he was put on the pitch to do. I don't know what the hope was in putting Luongo on.
Yeah.
Why do you need a tackling midfielder when you're sat against an opposition that doesn't even have a midfield? They've got 2 defences and 1 striker that's running around like a headless chicken. What is Luongo supposed to do? I just don't know what the point of it was.
And who did he go off for? Oh, he went off for Palmer, didn't he?
For Palmer. So, as you say, maybe the yellow card prompted a sub, but I don't know. I just don't know.
Even if we had like a world of, this is the interesting thing. We can go on to I think we should give Bullen a rating at the end of this one. In terms of formations and substitutions, why was there the impetus to be like, this is like, it felt like a cup final game, or a game that we can't, or a playoff semi-final game. We can't afford to lose this one, lads. Let's throw the kitchen sink at it. Why did? Because that's the interest. Talking about, we'll get onto formation substitutions, but typically managers do incremental, conservative.
Yeah.
This isn't working. I'll change this one piece. We'll see how that goes. Then we'll reassess. And
Bullen's reaction felt very much like I feel like a lot of football fans would in the stands, being like, "This is shit. This isn't working. Change it."
Yeah.
But I, in a weird way, and maybe I'm conditioned because of all of that conservative manager kind of incremental, but we didn't need to just completely. I think if we went ahead with that team performance that was in the first half and just carried on with that, that would have been interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Much like you get back in your share, if we could turn back time, get in your time machine, go back and give Stuart Gray some money. I have a bit of a minor kind of mini experiment, which is in this game. Just say we don't get rid of the Iorfa. We bring Bannon in. We bring Bannon in for Lee. Maybe not quite at the halftime. Maybe you think about 55, 60. If you think about another change of like, if Palmer would have happened, maybe you bring Odebajo on, or maybe you bring more Fox on. You just keep those players that can do defensive things. Then I would have maybe later on in the game at the 80-minute mark, maybe then you think, okay, let's try and throw something at it. And then maybe you think we bring two strikers on, but the second striker you bring on is not Jordan Rhodes, it's Abdi Nuyu. It's Abdi Nuyu to go kick some lumps in the Millwall defense, and they won't like it up them. You know?
It just gives us something to. What we didn't have was another option. So bringing Luongo on does not change our options on the pitch. It adds another guy like Hutch, like Bannon, who wants to kind of hold the ball a bit deeper and look up and see if he can make something happen.
Yeah,
he's not somebody who's in the box. He's not somebody who is presenting something, a unique threat to them. I'd love to know what Luongo was told before he came on the pitch, and I would imagine it's something that amounts to about the level of tactical brilliance, which is if you remember the Harry Redknapp getting caught telling Roman Pavlyuchenko's translator to tell him to run about a bit more. And I honestly think Luongo was chucked on with the instruction of go and put yourself about a bit. Because it didn't look like he was given a job.
No.
And he struggled because he was another person doing the exact same job as four other people on the pitch.
Yeah. And then we can think about, you thought about Luongo coming in, you think, we've got one of those. We've got one of those players who's doing a really good job being defensive, and he's playing right back.
Oh no, it was maddening. So then, funnily enough, after 5 minutes of Luongo being on the pitch, nothing magical had changed or happened. So he threw on Jordan Rhodes.
So Luongo, you're going to give a 6 to? Do you think?
Yeah, he didn't do anything, but he also didn't do anything
wrong. Yeah.
He just had no business being thrown on the pitch at that point in time.
No.
Oh.
But then going on to Jordan Rhodes, awful Jordan Rhodes.
And probably had the best chance of the game, which he glanced past the post with no power. Another powder puff header past the far post, which is all he seems able to do for us.
Jordan Rhodes is an old golden retriever. I'm rolling up my newspaper and I'm giving a little bash on the nose and being like, no, bad boy.
But again, to offer Jordan Rhodes the same level of fairness as everybody else, he never should have been asked, what is Jordan Rhodes supposed to do?
Well, this is
he never should have been given the job.
What I want to get on to Jordan Rhodes is, I've genuinely, from this performance, and there could be other stuff coming, there could be other voices in his head, but I want Jordan Rhodes to go off and sit in front of a Dawson's Creek, sit out on the creek and look into that creek and consider what you give to a football team and what makes you a footballer and what positives you have to give to a football team. And, I think it's score goals. I think it's poaching and scoring goals. But I haven't seen anything like that. And today was just terrible. Terrible. But also, it wasn't the game for him, to be fair to him.
Yeah, he didn't put himself on the pitch, and that's That's the biggest mark in his favour.
So it's like Murphy. The thing I felt about Murphy, going back to Murphy, the thing that I felt was missing is there needs to be a little more. This is going to sound really esoteric and a bit strange, but there needs to be a bit more kind of push in his muscles,
Right.
drive or conviction. Do you know what I mean?
It sounds like a critique on the level of how many chips he's had. But yes, I know what you mean a little bit. The push in his muscles.
I feel like he just needed a bit more drive and a bit more determination, and that was missing. And that's the same thing I always see missing from Jordan Rhodes. It's kind of like, this is another terrible analogy coming out of my mouth here, Reg. But if I said to you, I want you to get from this side of the room to that side of the room.
Yeah.
And you did it in like 4 or 5 seconds. You didn't know there was a time frame from getting from one side of the room to the other side of the room.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, here's a great bit of coaching. I say into your ear, I say, actually, you've got to get there like quicker. That was good. Here's my director notes to you. Can you get from one side of the room to the other side of the room a bit quicker? Because I just feel there just needs to be a bit more desire to get there. Here's a simple concept: a desire to get to the ball quicker.
Do you think we could place someone? Place someone. Do you think we could place?
You can just edit it out, and then you just do a bit of editing notes and be like, "Here, listener, this part where Luke is basically saying that he wants Rhodes and Murphy to get to the ball a little bit quicker, so a bit more desire together." That's all I want. I just want, it seems lacking when you watch him play.
Yeah.
And that was the same thing from Murphy. He just seemed a little bit slow on that today.
It's conviction, isn't it? It's a purpose, and it's conviction in what you're doing. Yeah.
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 Like there was a moment where I think Fletcher fouled one of their players. And I thought from my distance and my stream, Rich, I thought for a second that it was Jordan Rhodes. And I felt like I was going to go down to a black Southern gospel church and do a big hallelujah that Jordan Rhodes had shown a bit of application. Can you imagine Jordan Rhodes fouling a player? Could you imagine Jordan Rhodes fouling a player? You know what?
No, what he does is he bounces off players and looks at the referee and never gets the fouls. That's what he does with players.
If he fouled a player, I would expect like Dom Howson to write an article about it in the Star on Monday morning. Yeah. It would be that much of a revelation.
Sheffield Wednesday's new midfield enforcer, Jordan Rhodes.
But maybe I know he's not a nasty player, but it's just saying that if there was just something, if he could just add a little bit of needle to his game in some respect.
Yeah.
I want to get this. Hey, Mr. Defender. Hey, Mr. Millwall centre back. Hey, Jake Cooper. I want to get this ball before you. Fuck you. Fuck you. I'm getting this ball. Get the explicit on iTunes, Rich.
So 9 out of 10 for Jordan Rhodes?
Free. Try dividing that by 3, and you've got a 3 out of 10.
Yeah.
Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. And I feel like with previous podcasts, I've tried to defend him, and I've tried to say, and I've just been sorely disappointed by him.
But again, so maybe we should get round to. I think we've kind of made it clear, but if we had to assign a numerical value to what the manager added today, then where would we be falling?
Just quickly, what mark would you give Jordan Rhodes?
I think 3's, yeah.
Okay.
But again,
square root
3? For me, he should never have been asked to do the job. I think those second 2 substitutions. I have no idea what the game plan was. I have no idea what that kind of golden moment of high five the assistant. We nailed it with that sub. What was the hope of those two happening? I mean, as I say, maybe you think Jordan Rhodes, he scores goals, and maybe one thing, it'll bounce across. It's literally going to roll across his foot in the goal, and that it'll knock in the goal. Like, that's the sort of goal he might.
Yeah. So here's a funny thing. I would rather play Rhodes than I would rather play Winnall. However, I feel like everything I'm seemingly hearing from Winnall and everything I feel like I know about him as a character, which is making some very, very brash assumptions. I feel like he'd be someone who have a bit of needle and a bit of belief, and I want to impress. Yeah. I want to impress the fans. I want to impress the manager. I want to repay them for their good faith. I saw none of that from the Jordan Rhodes today.
No. There's nothing of that in him. I don't think it's just not his personality type.
He's a piece of sweet corn that I've digested.
Oh my goodness!
But the point I'm saying is a husk of a man, because when you digest sweet corn, you actually do digest the bit in the middle of the sweet corn, Rich. The bit you don't digest is a husk, which is the yellow bit.
Oh, it's getting worse, Luke. It's getting worse. I don't know if there's a rating beyond explicit in just unpleasant with a little face, a little emoji just turning its nose up. That's the sort of rating this one needs.
A hologram of Steve Jobs comes up and humbly apologizes.
So this was not good from Bullen.
This was not good from Bullen. No, this is while we're marking Bullen's report card, this is needs to improve.
Should we give him a sort of a grade just to differentiate him from the players?
I want to also roll up a newspaper and give him a little playful bash on the nose. Be like, no, don't do that, Bullen. But also in a weird way, I kind of want to go back and say, when I was writing about the formation, the subs, I'm just scrolling back to my notes.
Yeah.
This is a David Lynchian formation and substitution list.
Yeah.
One that I think, if we would have somehow won or got something from this game, you could have gone on Reddit and at great length done these huge ruminations and fan theories about how this works. Yes. Very much the Pepe Sylvia thing. So in a weird way, at times I was kind of watching this. When I was watching the game, I was so caught up in the adrenaline, being like, this is madness, but it could work. Up until, my silly Wednesday, my foolishness, my great Wednesday foolishness. I felt like from our conversation near the beginning with me and you was that you had a lot more of a pessimistic. I was a bit more kind of optimistic. To the last 10 minutes, and at that point, I was like, no, it's done. It's done. But until the game still felt there was some kind of degree of life in it.
Oh, yes.
So, in a weird way, it was. I think when Bannon came on, it was like, it's fine, it's Bannon. I'm a little bit confused with the formation, who's playing right back. When Palmer went off, that was the weird one. That was the one I think that lost it for me. And then when Rhodes came on, I'm like, this is just complete madness. Let's just see where this goes.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it was poor from Lee Bullen. I hope he learns a lot from this.
It's a good opportunity, isn't it? A good opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
To be fair, I mean, so I think the very best teams get a goal. Probably the teams that finish top of the league really punish the team that's down to 10 men and get 2. I think good teams, though, provoke that sort of response from opposition. So you could say in some weird way, the fact that they were so defensive and their fans were so happy with them being so defensive speaks to how many threats we have as a team. But we cannot have too many of these games where we're just kind of ground out, because that looks like a way to beat us. We didn't have a clue. And he needs to learn very quickly how to work in those situations, because the next not so good team we play. So let's say, this record so far, so we've got 2 wins and a loss. If we carry that forward, if we have 10 games on a roughly the same sort of form, we'll be one of the top teams in the division. That means the next time we come around to playing a team that's lower, bottom end of the table, somebody like a Charlton, something like that, they'll be approaching us as, okay, this is a team with threats all over the place. We need to manage them. And particularly at Hillsborough, we'll get teams sitting in against us just like Millwall did. And we need to find a way to deal with that. Otherwise, it will be a very easy... Everybody can do what Millwall did, pretty much.
Yeah.
There's no team in the Championship that can't just batten down the hatches and get 10 men behind the ball. So we need to find a way around it. And the fact that we struggled quite so much really is not a good sign. But we move forward, and hopefully there's a chance to kind of pick up tips here and learn.
Yeah, I really feel, I know we were talking about we talked about the Council Cup game, and it's a drop in the ocean compared to a lot of the bigger issues going on, in football, and money in football and money in UK football, and the seemingly bigger capitalism grasp, the chasm between the Premier League and the football leagues, and the very, very mild trickle down that it goes through the leagues. But kind of going back to, I think, what you said, I think the other week, last week, which was like, it is disappointing to lose that game against Bury, because it gives us another chance to play more football.
Yeah.
And also, it's a lesser side, and I think there's more of a mentality of like, we can safely make a calculated experiment to see if, I'd like to see a second string Wednesday, to see them all play.
Yeah.
To think you go Dawson, right back, let's go Adebayo, centre back, we can go Bates and Thornley, Fox at left back, or even Penny. And then you just carry on for the rest of the team, and you can think and looking about Winall and New or Winall and Rhodes up front. You can maybe go and play a 4-4-2.
Yeah.
And that would have been a great opportunity to make some of these crazy experiments that Lee Bullen cooked up in the lab today. Don't you also find this funny as well? I just had a random thought. Do you remember that we were going under Jos Lukai?
Yeah.
In his first kind of season, where he joined us it was the Carvajal Lukai hybrid season, and we'd had a good run of games. He basically just told them, kept it super, super defensive. We had some good results. People were feeling really happy about the manager and trying to do the best that we could in that instance for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
We went down to Millwall, and Lukai didn't play any strikers, and he played Ross Wallace in a false 9.
Yes.
So what is it about the new Den? Is it the maddening drones from the Jellied Eels, Vuvuzelas, that make us just lose our minds formation-wise?
I think that we talked last week about teams having an identity beyond the kind of transient playing staff and managerial staff, and I do actually think Millwall are one of those teams, for better or worse, who can claim to have a footballing identity, which in a word is just horrible. Their whole kind of attitude of they're no one likes us, we don't care. That kind of imbues the club and the people who play for them. So I think there is a bit of that, but then these are decisions made before we even walk out on the pitch.
Yeah.
Jos's decision not to play a striker happens in the week. Bullen's decision to drop Alabajo, drop Dawson after a clean sheet, change 2 players out of a defensive 5 who kept a clean sheet in a local derby the game before. That happened in the week. We trained with that team. So it can't just be the Vuvuzela noise. Even though that might explain all of the maddening decisions during the match today. Anyway, I think we should wrap up. We've been a swift, very close to 2 hours.
Yeah.
So, I think it needed to be sort of done over. But
would it have been quicker had we had it been a win and had it been like textbook?
Once I cut all your swears out, it'll be about 10 minutes. Yeah. Hi guys, see you later. Yeah, probably would have been quicker if we'd won. There's less to go over, but also this is a bit of an experiment, doing things so quick after the final whistle.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's been fun to do, and we'll learn. We'll get better. We'll keep going. And
so, just as a very quick look at the week ahead, we've got a game coming up against. Have we got a midweek game against Luton? Is that right?
Midweek game against Luton, which I won't be able to. I will just be on sort of highlight duty in terms of looking at that one because.
Yeah, and then maybe I should. And I will probably be in a position of having to do the job that pays me, and keep doing that to hopefully keep them paying me and not get rid of me.
But I am going to the Preston match, so.
Okay, well maybe next week we have a quick highlight look back at
Yeah. Good. Right. Well, I'm going to say cheerio.
See you later, Rich.
Been fun. Speak to you guys next week.
See you later next week. Bye.